Alright then guys, welcome back to the channel. As always, please do me a favor, click the like button, subscribe and leave your comments in the section below. So let's talk about Conor Benn. There are a number of things that I think we need to consider going into the Eubank Jr. fight. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about this. So in this video, I'm going to tell you 4 things to consider regarding Conor Benn as we head into the Eubank Jr. fight at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Number 1, failed PED test. Now look, Conor Benn, for those that didn't know, the first Eubank Jr. fight did not happen because Conor Benn failed drugs test because he took or he consumed too much eggs. Now, as you guys saw recently, Eubank Jr. then slapped Conor Benn with an egg as a revenge for him saying that he failed the test because of eating too many eggs. Now, the question here is, was Conor Benn on PEDs before the Eubank fight? So if you look at it, right, he fought the likes of Chris Van Heerden, he fought Chris Ajiri, he fought, Adrian Granados, Samuel Vargas. He fought these guys before the Eubank fight happened, right? So was Conor Benn on PEDs during those fights that we never found out? And if he was, now that he's going through a very strict testing regime, how is Conor Benn going to fare in the fight against Eubank? We need to consider this, because a prime example of this is Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. Now, Jarrell Miller, as big as he is, before failing PEDs test, Jarrell Miller was actually throwing 200 to 300 power punches around. His gas tank was incredible. His work rate was incredible. Jarrell Miller, for the size that he was really doing things that, made you question as to whether he was on drugs or not. And then he popped for PEDs. In the Daniel Dubois fight, after 5 rounds, Jarrell Miller literally ran out of steam. He ran out of gas, and basically he was a sit and duck. He was literally a target practice for Daniel Dubois because he had run out of gas, because he was not able to use PEDs to sustain his work rate, his stamina, and his output, and his performance really diminished in that fight. So we can see how a fighter's performance can diminish when they are not on PEDs. So assuming Conor Benn was on PEDs before he got popped during or leading up to the Eubank fight, how is he going to fare in the Eubank fight? And that is something to really consider. Number 2, unproven potential. Let's be honest here, guys. Let's call it spade a spade. Conor Benn is unproven. Conor Benn has not, come across any adversities in the ring. Conor Benn is unbeaten. Conor Benn, he hasn't really had a test yet at the highest level. Eubank Jr. is a proven fighter. Eubank Jr. has lost. He's come back. He's overcame some adversities. He knows what he's doing in the ring. Conor Benn, guys, to be honest, is actually a level below Eubank Jr. in terms of experience. Conor Benn might be explosive because he's a younger guy. And then again, we will see how that explosiveness comes to fruition in this fight, right? But he might be the most explosive fighter out of Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. But he's unproven. He hasn't really beaten anyone at the highest level, and he's going in against a guy in Eubank Jr. who has overcome some tests in his career in the ring. And that is something that I don't think that Conor Benn would have enough experience to hang in there with Eubank Jr. for the long run in that fight. In anything, if you look at it, this is actually a mismatch. This fight is a mismatch because Conor Benn, on the level of where Eubank Jr. operates, Conor Benn is not there. And this is something I think people need to consider. People need to realize that this fight is actually a mismatch. Now, this is boxing, guys. anything can happen. And this is why boxing is the most beautiful sport. This is why boxing is probably the most exciting sport, apart from football or soccer, how you guys call it in the US. But this is why boxing is probably the most exciting sport, because even the most underdog, right? The guy that nobody ranks or nobody gives any attention to could turn up on a day and really upset the most incredible fighter, or, you know, a fighter that everyone was picking to beat him. So as I'm saying this, I know that this is boxing. I realize that anything can happen in boxing, in a ring, and Conor Benn can absolutely do it. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying he's a unproven fighter. He's an unproven potential. He's a good fighter. He can become a very, very good fighter. But right now, going into this Eubank fight, Conor Benn is the underdog. He's unproven. And that could show on the night when these two guys get in the boxing ring. Number 3, no identity. Now, I say no identity in terms of identity in the ring, identity as a boxer. Conor Benn thinks he is his father. Conor Benn walks around, behaves like he is Nigel Benn. Conor Benn is nothing like Nigel Benn. Conor Benn is nothing like his father. But Conor Benn behaves like his father. And I just feel like Conor Benn needs his own identity. Conor Benn needs to be able to search and find what it is that makes him who he is. Of course, he is his father's son. He is Nigel Benn's son. Nigel Benn, one of, you know, the best and most ferocious punchers in British boxing history. Absolutely. But Conor Benn is nothing like his father, right? Conor Benn does not, you know, he doesn't have the punching power like his father. You know, he doesn't have the killer instinct like his father. I mean, he's had some good knockouts, for example, knocking out Chris Van Hayden. But Conor Benn is nothing like his father. So I think in this fight, or after this fight, if Conor Benn is able to defeat Eubank Jr., I think this is where Conor Benn really develops his identity, finds himself in the ring, or maybe outside of the ring, and really become the man that he wants to become. But as of now, we see Nigel Benn and we see Conor Benn. Conor Benn is still, you know, modeling himself after his father. And I think he needs that identity. And I think, you know, in this fight, it's either Conor Benn will find himself after this Eubank fight, or he will still, you know, stay on a path of trying to be like his father, which in the end is not going to end well for him, because he's not going to have that legacy because of all these things that is going around, you know, field drug test, still unproven, you know, and really not having the resume to back it up. So I think this fight would either be a make or break for Conor Benn in terms of finding himself and finding his identity. And then number 4, coming up in weight. This is what people are really not talking about. Like, I've not heard many people talk about the fact that Conor Benn is actually coming up in weight to fight Eubank Jr. at 160. Like, this is really serious. There is weight division, weight limits in boxing for a reason. And although what we've been talking about is the fact that Eubank Jr., you know, has signed to a rehydration clause to be able to, you know, rehydrate up to, you know, at the 160 limit and not too much, because then he'll be too big. But even though there's a rehydration clause in a contract, Eubank Jr. is going to be very, very big. He's going to be bigger than Conor Benn. Even at the face-off, you can see that Eubank Jr. is considerably bigger than Conor Benn. And this, and I feel like people are not really paying attention to it, because we've seen this so many times in boxing where a fighter will move up in weight and really get broken. Prime example, Kell Brook versus Gennady Golovkin. Kell Brook moved up in weight, fought Golovkin, got his eye socket broken, and Kell Brook was never the same again. And this is one of those things where Conor Benn, after this fight, might not be the same again, because he's fighting a bigger guy in Eubank Jr., who probably hits harder at 160. who is a better boxer in my opinion, who I think is gonna, punish Conor Benn in this fight. Conor Benn could come out of this fight having lost so much of himself that he's not going to be the same again after this fight. He's moving up in weight. It's very dangerous. This is why there's weight divisions in boxing. This is why, there's weight limits in boxing. And if people don't respect that, they then find out the hard way, which is what Conor Benn, I think, will probably find out in this fight, fighting the much bigger guy in Eubank Jr. and really getting hurt, or even, putting a very massive blemish on his career. Because when you get damaged, when you're in there being pummeled by the much bigger guy for a long time, taking this much punishment from a guy that's big, that hits harder than you, that's better than you, you're going to feel the effects. And in the end, or in the long run, really have an effect on your boxing career. So I think that is something that Conor Benn and his team definitely, I think they're thinking about it, but I don't think they are thinking about it to the extent that something could really happen to Conor Benn in this fight. I think Conor Benn and Nigel Benn are really fixated on having revenge over the Eubanks, right? Because Eubank Sr. beat Nigel Benn at Old Trafford in one of the most incredible fights, right? So Nigel Benn and Conor Benn are really fixated on wanting revenge, to the point that Conor Benn might end up being damaged permanently after this fight. Get in the comment section, guys. Let me know what you think about the points I have raised in this video. As always, hit the like button, subscribe, like this video, share, and I'll see you guys on the next one.